Hey, it's Matt at RuffHouse Studios, and welcome to Cannabasics. Today, we're making Cannabis Infused Marinara sauce. This episode is sponsored by the mighty Fast Herbal Infuser. You can save money on my favorite cannabis infusion device at theherbalinfuser.com with the code RuffHouse. This episode is part of our ongoing Summer of Fresh recipes. Today we're using Roma tomatoes. You need 4 tablespoons of olive oil, an eighth of cannabis, half an onion, 12 to 16 Roma tomatoes, 6 cloves of garlic, half a cup of red wine, a tablespoon of honey, a teaspoon of basil, a teaspoon of oregano, a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of ground black pepper, a quarter teaspoon of crushed red pepper, and 1 teaspoon of balsamic vinegar. And as far as the cannabis goes, you can use a quarter ounce of the flowers, or you could use 3/4 to 1 ounce of shaker trim, or 3/4 to 1 ounce of rosin chips. And the first step, if you're starting from scratch as we are, is going to be to decarb your cannabis. So I'm taking my cannabis flowers, I'm going to go ahead and grind it up, take out any stems and seeds if you have any of that, put it in an oven-safe dish. Now you could also use pre-made cannabis-infused oil for this recipe, and if you're doing that, you can skip this step. All right, but then we're also going to put a lid on our cannabis and put that in an oven to decarb at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. Now that decarb time is just perfect for the amount of time that we're going to need to prep our tomatoes. So we're going to blanch our tomatoes by dropping them in some hot water for a couple of minutes till they start to blister, and then we're going to put them in some cold water to cool them off and to loosen up those skins. And then once you do that with your tomatoes, you'll find it really easy to pull off the skins. And that's a lot better than trying to peel them, in my opinion. And also it's starting to soften up tomatoes, which is going to make it a lot easier when it comes to stewing them. So we'll continue peeling our tomatoes till they're all skinless. And there we go. Now we'll be able to go ahead and chop them into smaller pieces and put them in a bowl and set them aside because we'll be using them later. And like I said, this is just about the perfect amount of time to do this while the cannabis has been activating in the oven. Okay, so now our cannabis is out of the oven, and we're going to proceed with making the cannabis infusion. So what I'm going to do is I'm dividing the olive oil. So I'm using 4 tablespoons in all. So I'm putting 2 tablespoons here in the oil that I'm going to infuse, and I'm putting that inside of that cannabis that has been activated, and putting the lid back on. And then it's going to go right back into that same oven that's still at 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to let that infuse for 1.5 to 2 hours while we make the rest of the recipe. Okay, so we have like 1.5 and 2 hours now to let that infuse, and we can use that time to prep up our other ingredients like the onion and the garlic and the fresh herbs. You could also use dry herbs in this. And also, if you have canned tomatoes and you want to skip that section about the tomatoes, you can also do that. And as I've said before, you could also use pre-made cannabis-infused olive oil. So for instance, if you have an herbal infuser machine like the mighty Fast Herbal Infuser, you can make your oil in that and then skip the step as far as making the cannabis oil. Okay, but otherwise, we're just going to go ahead and prep all the other ingredients, and then we're moving ahead with the rest of the recipe. So we're taking a large saucepan on medium-high heat, and we added in the garlic, the onions, and the other 2 uninfused tablespoons of olive oil. And then we caramelized and sweated those onions down until they started to caramelize. And now I've added in the half cup of red wine, and I'm going to deglaze the pan with the red wine and let that reduce a little bit. And then we're going to add in those tomatoes that we had prepped earlier. We're going to add in those fresh herbs that we just chopped up. We're adding in the honey. We're adding in the vinegar. And all the rest of the ingredients. We've got the crushed red pepper going in. We've got salt. We're going to add some black pepper. And now we'll let that stew down until your desired consistency. And you can adjust the time and the temperature to coincide with how thick you want it, and also with the infusion that's going on in the oven. All right, but now that infusion's finished, and you can see I'm taking my cannabis and infusion, and instead of the whole separate step of infusing and separating it out through a strainer, I'm just going to strain it right directly into my dish. So you see, just use a fine mesh filter and just drop the oil right in there. I'm just using sort of the cream of the crop of the infused olive oil there because I want it to taste really good, and boy, does it. So that's pretty much it. You want to just let it simmer for about 5 or 10 minutes on the very low heat, just to let that olive oil that's infuse into the rest of the olive oil that's not infused. And you can serve it right away, dip it in some breadsticks, put it over some spaghetti. This is a great marinara sauce that you can use, or you can store it in a jar or container with a tight lid and just keep it in the refrigerator, and pop it out whenever you want to use it. Easy peasy. And it's fresh, delicious, and healthy. Again, I would like to thank the guys at Herbal Infuser for sponsoring this video. You can save money with the code RuffHouse at theherbalinfuser.com. I hope you enjoyed this recipe on how to make cannabis-infused marinara sauce. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to RuffHouse Studios for more cannabis culture videos made just for you. This is Matt at RuffHouse Studios. Thank you for watching.